Oh, hi. Oh my gosh. Hi, my name is Raquel Russell, and you are listening to Talking Stories. Make sure to get your favorite beverage, turn up the volume, and tune in. We're just getting started. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Talking Stories. This is the show where we chat about what's in the news, what's happening in culture, and stories that will hopefully inspire change in your life. I'm your host, Raquel, and for those of you who have listened to the show before, we're back. We're back. Oh my goodness. Y'all, let me tell you the truth, okay? This is actually a re-record because there was a whole other episode that now I feel proud about, now I like, but at the time I got really insecure about it. I said a lot of the things that I recorded in it shifted like literally that evening or the next day. Um, I felt like I was all over the place because I just wanted to get it done. I just wanted to get something out because I hadn't been on here and talking with you guys in so long. One of the things that shifted, this is how you're going to know how long ago this old episode was Will Smith hadn't said anything yet post the slap, like besides his little, his little post on Instagram, his little notes that he posted. This was before he put the video apology out. And in the episode that I did, I talked about like what we haven't heard, blah, 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 how people are feeling. Excuse the rice cooker if you're hearing it in the back. Um, of course, it's loud. Anyways, it's fine. Hopefully, you're not hearing it because I've got a fancy little mic. But yeah, so I talked about Will Smith. I think I talked about the Queen, and then, things obviously shifted. Um, yeah, so that episode is, in the archives. But I'm glad to be here with you now. It's been a minute and I'm really just glad to be back. Talking stories, for a while I wasn't sure where I wanted to go with this podcast. I knew that I loved it. I knew that I was passionate about talking with you all. Um, but insecurities get to you, imposter syndrome gets to you. It definitely got to me. But now I'm here and I've got some fresh ideas, fresh things that I want to do. And part of that is that this is going to change a little bit in terms of format. So the episodes, for those of you who listened before, were much longer, going to try and keep them much shorter, and going to be highlighting news in a way that I didn't so much in previous episodes. Just to not shy away from my background. For you listening for the first time, I'm a multimedia journalist, a multimedia storyteller. I have a background in journalism. I went to University of Toronto for the journalism program and got to end up working in communications, doing news stories and writing and content creating, and now podcasting. I love stories. If you couldn't tell by the title of this podcast, I love the possibilities of stories, how it impacts people, how one person can put out, a thread talking about something that happened in their life and it opens up the doors for other people who experience things and just felt like no one else would understand them. I am in awe of the power of stories. And that's what we come here on Talking Stories to do, to talk about stories and the power of them. And I'm looking forward to diving into things with you on a fingers crossed weekly basis. We'll highlight a couple of things that are happening in the world of storytelling, comms even. I'm definitely been leaning more into the fandom aspect of my life. I say I'm raised in fandom in a weird way. Also, there's going to be conversations about the other thing I was raised in, church, and the impact of religion and the stories that we tell ourselves through our different faith cultures. Originally, one of the ideas that I had for coming back to series 3, now this would have been like a year ago, I had this idea to talk about the impacts of church hurt. And I still want to do that somehow going through this next series. I know it might not be familiar to everybody listening, but maybe for some of you, it will be something that's interesting. I definitely want to have some more of those conversations. But also, I want to hear from you. If there's something in the news, something that you are hearing about that you'd like my take on, I'm obviously not an expert in everything, but I would love to hear anything from you and things that you're questioning and just want to know a little bit more about. I'd love to dive in, do some more research, and come back with some of my more thoughts. So, yeah. This is our reintroduction episode, but we're definitely going to talk some information. So first off, our first segment is going to be in the news. So the story that I want to focus on today, more news instead of like fandom, is Keke Palmer. So many of you might have seen this story that came out about Keke Palmer. She's launching KeyTV. So it's a digital platform that's going to be spotlighting a new quote a new generation of creators. I'm really excited about this, y'all, for obvious reasons, but Keke Palmer has been doing the work. Like all of us who grew up with her, am I a mid millennial? I don't know. I was born 94. I grew up with Keke. I think we're the same age. If maybe she's a year younger than me, I don't know. Let me Google that. Let me just Google that. Do 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 do. Keke Palmer is Wikipedia. You have failed the city. 29. Okay, she's a year older than me, but to see what she's doing, I'm in awe of her. Just the kingdom that she's building for herself. People even like Issa Rae, I'm in awe of. All these specifically Black women creators that we've been able to be part of their come up, like whether it's like existing with them in online spaces and seeing them do their memes and their gifs or whatever, their vines, to from awkward Black girl to having like these large television shows, in the case of Issa Rae. But with Keke, it just feels so much more personal because she's in my age range and a lot of age ranges of my friends. And to see her build this platform and want to, as she says, she wants to give the keys to the culture in the ways that has been given to her. And I think that's so admirable. I'm in awe of women, people in general, who reach back and give a hand back to other people and say, hey, I want you to come up with me. Like, if I'm going to get fed, we're all going to get fed. Like, I love that mentality. I hope that I can be that for someone someday. And I hope that you who are listening, that in your own way, that you're being that for other people. So interesting. I had a conversation, not a friend, like I think she knew me when I was a kid, but I don't remember her. Sorry. But she made a comment like, so many of us feel like we don't have everything together. I know I don't have everything together, and especially when I was much younger, like I'd be asked to mentor people and I'm like, me mentor who? Mentor who about what? I know nothing. But we all have something that we can give to others, no matter how small we think it is. I mean, that's something that stuck with me even for creating this podcast in the first place, coming back. You have your own unique take on things that are happening in the world. You have your own unique experiences, whether that's growing up, finding a job, having relationships, romantic, platonic, like we all have a little nugget. So to be able to see Keke reach back and say, hey, this is how I'm going to help y'all. That's inspiring for me. And I hope it's inspiring for others who are seeing this news, and fingers crossed, we start seeing people that we're familiar with getting on KeyTV. Like that will be amazing. That will be so good. But yeah, that is the in the news segment that I wanted to highlight for today. And now my two topics that I want to highlight after that is, first, we're going to start with all things happening in TV world. Oh, well, not all things, because there's only so much time in this episode. So today I want to focus a bit on the Lord of the Rings show, Rings of Power, and talk about a little bit fandom and some other fandom news. Actually, I won't say it first, just in case. But Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, and then some other fandom news that I thought was really exciting, and it's interesting to see how people react in social media land. Anyways, so Rings of Power, if you don't know, this is a new show, a new series that is on Amazon Prime. It's been on for the last 8 weeks, because I think the finale was episode 8. This goes back to the second age of Middle Earth's history. For those of you who are watching on YouTube and you see me looking at the side, I'm looking at my notes, so I'm not telling y'all lies. It is set thousands of years before the events of J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. And it's exploring like just a lot of the creation of new places that you might not have seen so much in the movie. So for example, Numenor, Mordor, certain wizard-like creatures and their origins. It is an amazing show. If you can tell by my smile so far, I really, 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 really enjoyed Rings of Power. Honestly, they could only, there was few ways for them to fail in my eyes. Just the fact that we were going back to Middle Earth was already a win. When I heard that the show was happening, I was like, okay. I was a little bit nervous, I'm not gonna lie, about Jeff Bezos and his team having hands in this, because I watched Wheel of Time. I'm not a Wheel of Time book stan, but I did feel like something was missing in the show, and I was nervous about what they were gonna go do to Middle Earth. But safe to say, it surpassed my expectations. I think some of the favorite things that I just jotted down here to talk about in terms of characters, I love Galadriel. There's some episodes where she's a bit much. She's a bit not Karen. She's not a Karen, but there's sometimes where I'm like, man, you need to just chill out a bit. Like, the world is not just about you. But no, I grew to love it. I mean, I was already interested in their take, showing her as a warrior. For anyone who has watched Lord of the Rings, the extended edition, read the books. I mean, I grew up reading the books. I used to read them every year. Lord of the Rings. You always get that taste of Galadriel, like especially in the movies. There's this part when she's talking to Frodo, right before they're leaving. They're like, this is the Fellowship of the Ring before they all split up, and there's this moment that the season finale actually calls back to, where you get to see just a hint of the power that Galadriel's not tapping into like 24/7. Even in The Hobbit, we got to see a bit of it as well. So yes, safe to say I was excited to see her representation. The new actress, her representation of the character, I thought she did a phenomenal job. She looked like a young Cate Blanchett. Like, it was so well done. Adar is a character who is, okay, if I'm understanding the lore properly, he is the he is the early version of the Uruk-hai, who are more elvish looking orcs, but he looks like an elf. Like, I believe he's an elf who's been tortured. And he's like the first kind of ancestor of the Uruk-hai that you would recognize in Lord of the Rings. Now, please let me not lose people who don't know Lord of the Rings. Let me go through this quickly. Other favorite characters, Elrond, so good. I love his representation here on the show. Like, they did such a great job casting him. And you really got to see him not just as, Daddy Elrond, like Arwen's father. Like, you got to really see his thought process, learn about his experience as being a half elf man, or not a half elf man, half elven. There's so much that I could go into, but I really love Elrond. Other ones, I'll just be quick. Durin's wife, Disa, dwarves, Ellen. I wrote down a name for Elendil here that someone named him on Twitter, and I won't say it on the podcast, but Elendil, the great whatever grandfather of Aragorn by Viggo Mortensen. People will know that name. Halbrand and Muriel. Shout out to Muriel. The actress is a Arrow alum, so I love her very much, and I really love her presence as a queen. She was a badass. I'm sorry, she was a badass. Least favorite characters, Theo. So that was Bronwyn's son. He was just, I don't know what he was doing. Arendir, like, I liked him, but it took me a while to really like care. The one thing I'll say about the show is I struggled with pacing at the beginning. Outside of all the noise that was happening with, these interesting folks trying to say the show was woke, LOL. Elves don't exist in real life. They can be black. Breathe in, breathe out. But outside of all of that, the pacing I thought was a little interesting. So some characters that I think I'm going to really love going into season 2, it took me a while to really be invested in the way that I'm traditionally invested as a fan. until like later episodes, and I think that goes well into like some of my favorite parts of the show. And I please let me know if you're watching Rings of Power, if you're going to watch Rings of Power, let me know what you have been enjoying about the show. My favorite part, definitely like the diversity, can't shake it. I love it. I love seeing different faces involved in Middle Earth. Like that was something that we didn't have for a long time. Let me pause. The rice cooker's going off. Yeah, seeing diverse faces in Middle Earth was huge for me. Like, do you understand how cool it is as a fan? Like, I've been a fan of Middle Earth since I was in grade 6, and Miss Saunders let me read The Lord of the Rings and take it out, and she let me keep it as long as I wanted to. To see faces that look like mine and other diverse people in the show, bruh. Like, at one point, my dad and I, like, and my dad and I, we're very different on a lot of things, but it was just such a pure moment where he turned and looked at me. He's like, "That's a black elf," and I'm like, "I know," and it was just beautiful. Besides that, other favorite things. Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Watching Mordor come to be, episode 6, a banger, a banger. Episode 6, whew, chef's kiss. I loved episode 6. Um, Definitely the Halbrand interactions. Some of the things that I thought were cons about the show, outside of again hearing people moan about how quote unquote woke the show was, there's some corny moments that I'll have to let them live. Spoiler alert, episode 8, there's a character who goes, "I'm good." I'm like, oh. But I'll let them live. In the context, I think it worked. I laughed, but it was cute. And some other cons, it did take a while for some things to happen, but now looking back, I think the pacing makes sense. In the moment it was hard, but yeah. So what's interesting coming out of the show, so not a spoiler about Halbrand, but there's been some folks who started shipping Halbrand and Galadriel. Halbrand is another character. He's shows up as a man who people think might be a powerful character for another region of the show. LOL, honestly, I should just say like spoilers, and you'll have to deal with the spoilers. But people started shipping Halbrand and Galadriel. Book readers, movie watchers will know Galadriel has a man. His name is, am I going to say it wrong? Probably Celebron, Celebron, Celebron. Anyway, she has a man, but in the show they've established that he's gone missing and she doesn't know where he is. Anyways, there's a shipping community that has started for Halbrand and Galadriel, and I'm telling you, there were some spicy moments between Halbrand and Galadriel. I could see the vision, but I also was like, my girl has a man and he's going to show up at some point and there's going to be delicious drama, but I wasn't trying to get invested, because the interesting thing about Rings of Power is we all know how the show will, or we know how a lot of threads will end, especially if you're someone who's watched the movies. If you haven't, this is new for you and this is exciting, and Godspeed. You know, maybe they'll just go completely off book and say, forget Lord of the Rings, it doesn't exist. Halbrand and Galadriel for life. Now, I don't think that's going to happen because of how episode 6 ended, or episode 8. But it's been so cool to see. There's shippers that have started for Galadriel and Halbrand. If you don't know what a shipper is, it's people who are rooting for a relationship. So shipping two characters to have their happily ever after, or sometimes they just ship friendships. So I've seen that, but most times it's like a romantic relationship. And one moment happened that was interesting, that's going to lead me into my other topic in fandom news, was there was a post where someone was like, well, I guess I'm gonna have to go into spoilers for this. So Halbrand ends up being an evil character. Let's just say that. Spoiler. And one of the posts that I saw on Twitter, which was hilarious, was calling in Reylos, like, we need your help. Reylos, for anyone who's uninitiated, are people who ship Rey from Star Wars and Kylo Ren / Ben Solo. It's quote unquote a controversial ship, LOL, because Kylo spends most of the movies as a villain, like a proper villain. He is the son of Leia Organa, Princess Leia, Carrie Fisher, and Han Solo, and Harrison Ford, sorry. And I'm full disclosure, I'm a Reylo. I've been a Reylo. I was undercover for a couple of years, but I've been a Reylo. And it brings me to our next interesting news talking about fandom, because there's a book that was released. Actually, you can probably see it in my background. I still haven't read it yet, but I bought it out of support. It's a book called Love Hypothesis. It is written by an author named, what's her real name again? Her real name, Ali Hazelwood. Ali Hazelwood is a Reylo. She's been writing Reylo fiction for a minute, and I've read some of her fics, love them. I mean, it's fan fiction. Fan fiction, the definition of fan fiction for the uninitiated is a fictional writing that is written in a quote unquote amateur capacity by fans. It's unauthorized, but it's based on existing works of fiction. The author uses copyrighted characters, settings, or other intellectual properties from the original creator as a basis of their writing. I might have to do a whole episode on fan fiction, because fan fiction has had such an impact in the way that I see storytelling and the power of taking characters and birthing your own worlds. One interesting thing is like there's a show called Arrow about the Green Arrow that was on CW, and it just had its 10-year anniversary. The fans did this amazing celebration celebrating its 10-year anniversary since the first episode. That show, fan fiction, was part of what helped change my mindset on the original relationship that was supposed to happen, the canon, quote unquote, between comic book canon of Black Canary, Green Arrow, for this other character named Felicity Smoke. And fan fiction helped open your eyes to seeing how other characters can work together. But it's just so interesting because going back to Ali Hazelwood and her work, she wrote a book, Love Hypothesis, that is now getting a movie deal. And when I tell you, people lost their minds on Twitter talking about the Reylos. Why are the fan fiction writers getting another movie? And I will say, I guess they're justified because, or I don't know, there's fans of 50 Shades of Grey, but 50 Shades of Grey was also based on a fan fiction. It was based on a Twilight fan fiction. I don't think I remember the author. Twilight was actually some of my early fandom interactions in terms of fan fiction and fandom culture. I don't think I remember reading that author's stuff. She might have been too old for me when I first started. Oh well. But yeah, so I guess fan fictions turning into movies kind of get a bad rap sometimes, but people also are anti-Reylos. Sometimes I don't want to say justified, but sometimes I get it. But it's very interesting to me to see how these creations of fans then turn into new works, new worlds, and now it's going to be a movie. Now, to bring this all back to Rings of Power, everyone can ship and write their stories on fan fiction about Halbrand and Galadriel. But fortunately, unfortunately, whatever you feel, canon's already written, the movies already exist, and I'm very sorry to that ship, but it's gonna be a tragedy. That's all I'll say. Other works outside of that epic rant on Rings of Power and then fan fiction culture, there's some other stories that I'm looking forward to seeing, and I don't know about you. There's a new Michonne and Rick series that's going to be coming from the Walking Dead universe. We got some epic news that Henry Cavill's Superman is going to be showing up in a cameo at the end of Black Adam. I, for one, am excited about that. I'm excited to live in a world where there's a Black Superman that's supposed to be coming in a couple of years. It's a like one-off story. And then knowing that Henry Cavill's coming back because DCU did him dirty, and I'm very glad that he's coming and we're going to be able to see his beautiful face as Superman, and then we'll see him back in The Witcher and whatever else, you know, Hollywood deigns to give him. And then finally, House of the Dragon. Not sure who here is watching it. If you are, let me know in the comments or send me a message. Epic. I'll say it right here. I love it more than Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones was difficult to watch. It was difficult to get through. House of Dragon, the political story is so intriguing to me. I love it. I love it. We'll probably talk about it again at some point. But keeping in the interest of time, let's get into topic number 3, what we're reading, inspirational stories. So for what we're reading, I finally, well, this is a couple of months ago now, I finished Will's book, Will. My quick thoughts, I thought it was a beautiful read. Obviously, this narrative has been talked about in the news ad nauseum, but you can see a through line between how he reacted to the stuff that happened at the Oscars, uh, directly connected to his life in terms of feeling ashamed of not defending women, especially the women in his life, being a failure to the women in his life. Uh, Other than that, I think it's a beautiful book in terms of reading it, but also audio style book. Like there's so many notes that I've taken it from it for the clients that we work with on in this ghostwriting team that I'm on, just in terms of how to tell an engaging story, how to speak to an audience but not speak down to an audience. So if you're someone who's a creative and you're wanting to look at like ways to write your own like personal story, I would definitely check out Will. It's a very good book, and especially the audiobook, it's a good one to listen to. The one that I'm now reading is Toni Morrison's Beloved. So I'm looking forward to finish that because I actually haven't read. Actually, let me not expose myself on this platform. I need to read a lot more and expand a lot of my reading. So I'm very excited to be reading Beloved. What are you reading? Please put me on some new books. I mean, I can't promise that I'm going to be buying them to read them all because you don't even want to see the shelf of books that I have that still need to be read. And if you're a book lover, you probably know this. Buying books and then not being done or finishing the ones that are on your shelf, that's my problem. Anyways, but yeah, so that is our segment for inspirational stories and stories that we're reading. Again, would love to hear yours. And as we get ready to conclude this episode, I just want to say again, thank you to everyone, one, for listening to this episode. Thank you for listening to the episodes past. If you're new, again, please feel free to go back and check out our past episodes. We've had some amazing guests. I'm looking forward to bringing on some special hosts to co-host this with me as we go forward. But again, thank you to you. You've helped me to feel like my voice adds value to the world, and that I have value being here again. I'm looking forward to helping to inspire you in your journeys, and the stories that you hear bring some light and some positivity. And even if there's a story that you don't understand that I'm talking about, and you're just like, Raquel's on her nerdy rant, I hope that brings you some joy as well. And if there's a show again or a news story that you're interested in my thoughts on, please let me know. I feel like you guys should get a cameo from Miss Lucy. Let's show you her. Hi, Lucy. Hi, Lucy. Say hi to the camera. Say hi to the camera. There she is. Hi, Lucy. Say hi. You gonna say hi? No. I think she wants to go. Her ball's on the ground. She's done. But yeah, anyways, make sure to follow us on our social media channels. They'll be linked below. Thank you again for listening. Share with a friend. Send in your suggestions, your ideas, and I will see you next week. This is Raquel Russell signing out for Talking Stories, and I'm rooting for you. Keep staying strong. Keep being you. We'll see you next week. Bye.